Welcome to the channel, where we dive into some of the most dramatic, jaw-dropping, and emotional stories shared on Reddit. Today, we're exploring one of the most sensitive and explosive topics: cheating. Betrayal is something that leaves lasting scars, and Reddit is full of people sharing their experiences of heartbreak, confrontation, and sometimes shocking twists. In this video, we're counting down the top 5 cheating stories that left the internet in disbelief. From double lives to shocking discoveries, each story will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning trust and relationships. Whether it's tales of revenge, heartbreak, or unexpected forgiveness, these stories show the raw and emotional side of infidelity. Let's jump into it, but fair warning, these stories will hit you right in the feels. Story number 1. Avoiding partner cheated. Hello everyone, F29 here. For weeks ago, my boyfriend of 4 years told me that he cheated on me in September. For 2 months, he was in a relationship with a transit woman living in Amsterdam. We live in Paris, whom he met at a work party. During that evening, they only kissed, didn't see each other again, and exchanged sex messages for 2 weeks afterwards. My boyfriend confessed everything on his own, supposedly to be honest, so that I could forgive him and move on with him. I asked him several times if there was more to tell me. He promised not to, and I asked him for time. Only intuitively, I wasn't feeling it. So I contacted the girl, whom I found in her Insta subscriptions. She was adorable and very straightforward, apologizing right away because my boyfriend hadn't told her he was in a relationship. She went on to tell me that they had indeed slept together the night they met, which brought me down. I don't like lying about health issues. She told me there had been a lot of sexual videos, nudes, hot conversations, cybersex, but not only that, also more ordinary conversations during which he told her he missed her and wanted to be with her. During these conversations, a fairly strong emotional connection would have been forged, and he would have told her that he was developing feelings. He would tell her that he missed her and wanted to be with her. He even arranged for her to stay with him on an upcoming work trip to Paris, and was planning to go see her in Amsterdam, supposedly for work too. The young lady then contacted him, urging him to tell me the truth, as she was equally shocked at the extent of the lies on both sides. I was of course very shocked, so I confronted my boyfriend. At first, he lost his temper for a whole week, blaming me and insinuating that the drop in our relationship. I've had health problems for a few months now, but the situation is purely temporary. Was my fault, and that I'd been weighing him down for 1 year. Except, let me tell you, everything was going well between us. 4 months now. We've had very few arguments. Our communication has been fluid. We often have sessions where we learn to tell each other what's going well and what's not in our lives and in our relationship, and so on. He blamed me for contacting the girl because he was supposedly waiting for the right moment to reveal everything. Yeah. He lied to my face and denied any sexual relationship. The tension fell, and last week he sent me lots of messages telling me that he'd ruined the most beautiful thing that had ever happened in his life, me. That he'd screwed up because he didn't feel fulfilled and lost in his life, but that I absolutely didn't deserve that because I'd always been the most important person in his life. He told me he'd screwed up because he didn't feel fulfilled and lost in his life, but that I absolutely didn't deserve that because I'd always been the pillar of the relationship. He told me he wanted to talk to me, but that it would be too hard for him to look me in the eye, and that he loved me. As for the girl, she told me she felt like he was not ready for a true relationship, but she did not tell me that she was going to stop talking to him either. Before she knew I existed, she'd planned to see him regularly in a rather lighthearted way. We saw each other talk, and he told me he was going to therapy, but I was not convinced because he was half sad, half angry, telling me nothing was my fault, but also blaming me for what I did wrong in the relationship, for example, not enough as asterisk X those last weeks, etc. He admitted he had been selfish, and that he had seen the girl as a way to escape a routine in his life that he hates since months. We slept together before he left, but he did not even stay with me for the night. I feel lost and in great pain. Should I forgive him, and what risk am I taking? I naively tell myself that if we spend some time apart, he'll be able to think about starting afresh. I tell myself that since he's lost, there's a way for things to get better if he finds himself. Because what's more, he still loves me. And another part of me tells me that I'm being totally fooled because he was perfectly aware of the harm he would do to me by putting all this into action. His college best friend saw him last week and she called me, telling me she didn't recognize him as he was totally lost and disoriented, in denial of what they did to me. He did not give any explanation to her and ever forgot to mention some details of the story. Even her was frightened, and she does not want to talk to him for the moment. She told me he went to see that Amsterdam girl because she enables him to embody a dark and bad boy character he can't no longer be with me. In other terms, the Amsterdam girl is projecting on him what he wants to be but is not. Classic avoidant. He already broke up with me for the same reasons, afraid of commitment, feeling too much pressure, etc. 2 years ago, but he did take me back at the time after 3 months with NC, and his love for me seemed stronger than he ever. I'm his first serious girlfriend. He only had short-term relationships or hookups before me, and each time some emotional stability is reached, he seems scared and blows everything off. I'm totally lost and feel like I've deserved this. It's a horror. I broke up with him and went and see 10 days ago. I haven't had any news since then. What should I do? My friends tell me to run away because a guy like him won't change before years. Story number 2. I took it way too far. I once started by saying that I am not proud of what I did. But since time has passed, I have always wondered what people would say about what I did. Years ago, I met my ex. He was 3 years older than me, and I like to say we went through a lot that normal relationships don't go through. We started off really good, we loved each other, and we even went through a long-distance relationship phase. But while we lived in the same city, I had found out that he had cheated on me. I found out that he was cheating on me through Apple Music, which that's a story for another time. But when I confronted him, obviously, he had said no, that I was a crazy, and that he would never do that, until we were at a family party, and I had gone through his phone. That's where I found all the messages and pictures they had sent to each other. I also want to add that he never posted me on social media, and at the beginning I made it out of a big deal, but then I just said whatever, I'm not going to act childish over him not posting me on social media. But anyways, I'm guessing the girl didn't know he was with me, so I don't blame her. We broke up for about 5 months, and then we decided to try it again, but this time it was going to be more challenging because I was moving out of town. Once I had moved, everything was going well. We would call and text all the time. So it was like we really weren't missing anything, and he would even come to where I was and spend the weekend or maybe a week. I do want to add that I was living with my parents. We were both in our 20s. Well, we still are. I trusted him. I loved, and I obviously had in the back of my head what he had done. But it really didn't bother me as much since I am a strong believer of people deserving a second chance. One of the times when he would come to visit me, I had gone through his phone and boom, I saw that he was talking to several women. This broke my heart completely. This was his second time being caught cheating. I told him to leave the house. He begged if he could stay to fix things. And well, when you're in love with someone, you do want to fix things, and we did. We ended up fixing things, but I did tell him that if he would do it again, I would do it 10 times worse. I decided to join the military. I went to boot camp, and before going to basic training, he proposed to me. We got engaged, but didn't get married till a year later. Within that year, he joined the military as well. This is where everything went downhill. He became really close to all my friends I had in the military. By the way, I only have female friends, not because he didn't let me have guy friends, but because I didn't want him to feel some type of way. He started sliding up on my friends' stories, and they would tell me what he would say. At the beginning, I didn't really think that much of it until he started being flirtatious with them and found pictures of my friends in bikinis that they posted in his gallery. I wasn't going to confront him this time because I had told him that if he would do it again, I would do it worse. So, I had met someone where I got stationed. Since we got married after he joined the military, we didn't get stationed together. He lived in another state. I met this guy who was also in the military. We clicked. It was like we knew each other for a long time. He knew I was married and we just mess around. We told each other we were never going to be anything serious, and so we continued. And I had told myself that I was going to stop until my husband, now ex-husband, found out. But something happened that really wasn't in the plan. I fell in love with this guy and I got pregnant. I got really scared, and the guy told me that there's a life in our hands now. He said that he was supportive of what the decision I would make. He agreed to co-parent if I decided to keep it, or he was also supportive if I decided to not continue with the pregnancy. I was really scared my parents didn't know what was happening, and I didn't want my husband to know, so I decided to end the pregnancy. It was really selfish of me, I know, but within 2 weeks, or probably less, I had a lot of guilt, so I ended up telling my husband everything. He was heartbroken because even though he had cheated on me, he never slept with the girls that he would message. We decided to get divorced, not to say a word about anything, and we wished us the best. Now I am living happily with my new family, which is with the guy I was messing around and our beautiful baby. I understand that I took it too far, and I realized that I should have ended the marriage or not even had gotten married in the first place. I regret every decision I made. It cost a life that I would have loved given to. Around the same time when I had told him everything, I had also told my parents, and I want to thank them for always being there for me, for not judging me for what I had done. I don't know if he ever told his parents about what had happened, but I do want to apologize for what I did. Like I said in the beginning, I am not proud for what I did, but I am thankful for everything that happened because it made me mature and learn about life. What are your opinions on this story? Comment, please. Story number 3. Wondering if the pain and insecurities will ever go away. I, 33F, have been married to my husband, 34M, for 8 years this past May. We dated off and on in high school and ended up in a steady relationship in 2010. We had our first child together in 2015 and got married the following year. I had been an autopilot with my relationship with him during 2016 because my mother was losing her battle to lung cancer. She ended up passing away about 2 weeks before our wedding date. I was shattered because she was such a pillar in my life. We went forward with the wedding as planned despite my huge loss because my husband's family is significantly larger than mine. He had family members that had to travel in from out of town and had already made arrangements. I got my first shock just a few months into our life as newlyweds when a mutual friend of ours' wife was messaging my husband without my knowledge. I'm going to change some names up for obvious reasons, but here's some small backstory about these mutual friends. My husband and I both worked at a local factory job. He'd gotten hired on before me and had introduced me around to his friends that he'd made while working there. One of these friends was a guy named Robert. Robert was around our age, also played video games in his free time, and was a stand-in trainer at our place of employment. So we both got to know him pretty well at work, and then on a personal level. We ended up hanging out with Robert and his wife Amy at their house one time for a cookout. Amy and I really didn't click. I thought she was a little immature, but we were friendly enough and we exchanged Facebook info and chatted occasionally. It was usually just small talk, and that eventually died off to nothing at all. One night, I was leaning over my husband as he got an incoming Facebook message from Amy. I was immediately put off because her and I hadn't talked in months. I questioned my husband about it, and he blew it off as her hitting him up from time to time, annoying him, and blocked her on Facebook. I was so sure that my husband was doing nothing wrong that I made a snarky post about people hitting him up and him not responding, and that triggered her response. She sent me select screenshots conversations between her and my husband. I say select because I know she didn't show me everything, and she made sure to show me the things that would cut me the deepest. Obviously sexual conversations, but also stuff that was a little deeper. In one conversation, he was pushing really hard to meet her in person, and she asked him about me, and he said that I wasn't home and that I was going to be gone for the night. The only time I didn't come home was the night I stayed with my mom at the hospital when they told her they were moving her to hospice care and that there was nothing more they could do for her. The length of their conversations lasted for months before and after our wedding. And to make the story even sweeter, my husband asked Robert to be a groomsman in our wedding. At first he said he couldn't do it, and I couldn't understand why he was acting so funny. Turns out he knew my husband and Amy were talking shit to each other. The betrayal cut me to the bone. I almost lost myself that time. I can sit here and give 100 reasons to try and justify why I stayed, but the honesty is I was scared to leave my familiar place in such a time of upheaval with the passing of my mom. Now here we are 8 years later. We have had 2 additional children of our own, and we also took custody of my godson. To say we have a full house is putting it lightly. I've hit an all-time low this year with my depression, so I've been focusing on my mental health more than I ever have in my life. I was at a point of drowning, and I knew I needed professional help. I finally found the light at the end of the tunnel, and because of all of the progress I've been making, it has made my husband feel incredibly guilty. He told me a couple of months ago that he had secretly been messaging other women and having sexual conversations with them. He also admitted to swapping pictures with these women and saving their pics on his phone for later enjoyment. I didn't ask too many questions, and I don't have all of the details because it makes me sick to my stomach. He said that because I've been so depressed lately that he didn't want to burden me with his sexual needs. So he found other ways to satisfy himself. But porn became less and less available where we live. So he did some digging into other ways to get by. He had an alternate email that he used for a secret Snapchat. I'm trying to keep my momentum going with my mental health and self-care, while at the same time being strong for my children and not letting the cracks show. He's giving me all the same stuff that I got last time. He loves me and doesn't want anyone else. He will go to counseling and spend the rest of his life trying to make it up to me. I feel like an idiot for trying to build a life with someone that did me so dirty at the beginning of our marriage. I just don't know if I can ever get over the insecurity this man has made me feel at some of my darkest moments. I would be lying if I said I didn't have love for this man. He is the father of my children, but I'm not sure I'm in love with him anymore. Will I ever be able to move past this? Or is my relationship over? What you think about this whole scenario? Give us your important note in comments. Story number 4. My boyfriend that's in jail found out. My boyfriend has been in jail for 5 months. On October 26th, I decided I was tired of crying over him. I love my boyfriend. We were together almost 3 years. Ever since he went to jail, he changed, got angrier, and his mom doesn't like me from the start when his mom gave him the gun, which is why he is in jail. He had the gun on him for protection, because my cousin's boyfriend threatened to shoot me when I told him he got a gun, and we both got shot at upon arrival. He has bond in him, and his family expect me to pay the full $4,000. I have to take care of our 3 kids alone, which I'm fine with, but his parents don't help with anything, and I don't ask. When Hurricane Helene hit, we were without power for 12 days. His parents got their power on before us, which would have been October 10th. Never even offered to get her grandchild. It was extremely hot, but hey, anyways, I decided to cheat with a friend I had made while I was at work. He was a customer. He lets me use his car, so I can, for example, go to food banks to get food, or work helps with some of the bills. And he knows about my boyfriend that's in jail. My boyfriend had a car before he went to jail, and I used it a month while he was in jail, but his mom didn't want me to have it. The car would have helped prevented me from looking for someone else. Plus, before I even broke down and decided to step out, my boyfriend would be so mean and rude, demanding that I work to pay the bond one worked 4 weeks postpartum. I never got to rest and relax, constantly work. He wants me to take the bus, but the bus stop is full of men, and they constantly flirt with me. One guy that lives with my neighbor, he goes up there, not sure why, I don't care, but he started talking to me and asked me when my boyfriend would get out. I had lied and said in 2 days. Then he said, what would your boyfriend do if he found out that I came over? I told him he wasn't invited, and he said, I know where you stay, I can easily get in. My boyfriend gone say, well, do what you gotta do, Mason, or call the police. You can do better. He acts like I don't do anything for him when I had to pay the bills by myself, do everything by myself. He wasn't making me feel loved at all. And he blames me as to why he's in jail when his parents provided the gun for him. He constantly puts his mom on a pedestal on how I need to be more like her when she's had more resources. And the 90s were an easier time to be broke and struggling. I'm in a whole new state without family, few friends, like my neighbor who babysits the kids while I work. How my boyfriend found out was on Saturday night. He called me, and we talked. I told him I went to the laundromat, and he asked how I got there. I told him a lift the next day, which was yesterday. Then he said that must have been a big-ass lift to have you clothes and the kids, and I said it was out in the trunk. Then he asked how much did I pay for the trip there and back. I said $40, and he kept poking, saying, I just don't feel like you took a lift. And I asked, why does it matter when the kids have clean clothes? Then he asked why I got defensive. Then he kept asking, so I said a friend took me. So I said one of my old friends, which is a guy, then he got mad and said, what guy will take you somewhere for free without you doing something? I know y'all did something, tell me now while I'm in jail because I don't want to find out. When I'm out, someone in the background was. Like, I know that's right. So I told him, which between me and my new guy, we only do oral sex, no penetration. And I'm his dom, but yes, still I cheated. What is your cheating story? Please give me your story in comments. Story number 5. I became my mother and lost everything. I never imagined I'd end up here. Back in my childhood bedroom, living with my mom, drowning in the mess I've made of my life. I swore I'd never be like her. I spent my whole life defining myself against her choices, promising I'd never repeat her mistakes. But now, I'm no better than she was. If anything, I'm worse. When I was 9, my family shattered. My parents divorced, and my world turned upside down. My dad, the man I adored and idolized, was the perfect husband in my eyes. He was kind, loyal, hardworking, and he loved my mom deeply. But that wasn't enough for her. She cheated on him, and the fallout was catastrophic. I didn't know the full story at the time. I just knew my dad changed after that. He became distant and cold to everyone except me. It was like the betrayal flipped a switch in him, shutting off any warmth he'd once had for the world. I found out later that my mom wasn't the first woman to betray him. Before my dad married my mom, he'd been engaged to another woman who also cheated on him. He forgave her, tried to make it work, but it didn't last. When he met my mom, he finally felt like he'd found someone who wouldn't hurt him, someone who valued the kind of man he was. But her infidelity broke something in him. He never remarried, never even dated again. He shut himself off from love completely, despite being an attractive, fit, and desirable man. Friends, family, even I encouraged him to move on, but he wouldn't. He'd say, once is a mistake, twice is a lesson. He learned his lesson the hard way. My mom, on the other hand, jumped from one bad relationship to another. None of the men she dated treated her with half the respect my dad did. Watching her stumble through her life only fueled my resentment toward her. When I was 15, everything came to a head during a massive fight. I'd been caught drinking with friends, and the police brought me to her house. After they left, she started lecturing me about responsibility and respect. It was the last straw. How dare you talk to me about respect? I snapped. You ruined everything. You had the perfect husband, the perfect life, and you threw it all away. You don't understand what it was like, she shot back, defensive. Your father, he wasn't enough for me. I froze. What the hell does that mean? She hesitated, her face flushing with shame. I mean physically. Your father is a good man, but he's small. It's always been a problem, and I couldn't live with it anymore. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You're telling me you destroyed our family because Dad has a small dick. It's not just that. She yelled, but her voice cracked. It's about feeling satisfied, about feeling wanted. Dad worshipped you. I screamed. He treated you like a queen, and you threw him away for some random losers? You're disgusting. That night cemented my vow. I would never be like her. I would never betray someone I loved, no matter what. But I broke that promise. I met Dave in my early 20s. He was 15 years older than me, but I didn't care. He was gorgeous, successful, confident, and kind. He had a steady government job, and he made me feel safe and cherished. Like my dad, he wasn't perfect. He had a small penis. But that didn't matter to me. I told myself I was better than my mom, that I'd never let something so superficial ruin my marriage. We got married, and for a while, I was happy. Dave was attentive, loving, and incredible in other ways. But as time went on, I started to change. I got restless. I started focusing on what he couldn't give me instead of what he did. And then, like my mom, I strayed. At first, it was just physical. I sought out men who were bigger, who could give me the thrill I convinced myself I was missing. But it wasn't just about the size. With these men, I became a different person, bold, reckless, free. It was exhilarating, and I hated myself for loving it. I even started to understand my mom's decision in a twisted way. I told myself that maybe she felt trapped, like I did, and needed to break free. But after every encounter, the guilt would come crashing down. Dave didn't deserve this. He was good to me, loyal and loving. I knew I was destroying everything we built, but I kept doing it. I told myself as long as I kept my affairs discreet, I wasn't really hurting him. Then he caught me. One day, he surprised me at work and saw me leaving with another man. He followed us and caught us having sex in my car. He recorded everything. When I saw him standing there, watching us through the window, I thought he'd explode. But he didn't yell. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me with this devastating calm, turned, and walked away. When I got home, my stuff was on the porch. The locks were changed, and he wouldn't answer my calls. I sat there sobbing until my dad showed up. He loaded my things into his car without a word. On the drive, I tried to justify myself. "You don't understand," I said. I felt like I was missing something. I didn't mean to hurt him. He didn't even look at me. "You sound just like your mother," he said. I felt like I'd been slapped. I thought he was taking me to his house, but he took me to my mom's instead. He unloaded my things, looked at me with pure disappointment, and said, "You made your bed. Now lie in it." Then he drove away. Now I'm here, living with a woman I swore I'd never be like. I've become everything I hated. Dave has filed for divorce. My dad won't even speak to me. I betrayed the two men I loved most in the world. And for what? A thrill? A moment of excitement? I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can. I've lost everything, and I have no one to blame but myself. And that wraps up today's video on the top 5 cheating stories shared on Reddit. These tales are a reminder of how complex and fragile relationships can be, and how betrayal can leave a lasting impact. What do you think about these stories? Do you sympathize with the victims? Or are there any surprising twists that made you rethink your stance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more gripping Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care of yourselves and your relationships. We'll see you next time